From the east, house of light, may wisdom dawn in us, so we may see all things in clarity. From the north, house of night, may wisdom ripen in us, so we may know all from within. From the west, house of transformation, may wisdom be transformed into right action, so we may do what must be done. From the south, house of the eternal sun, may right action reap the harvest, so we may enjoy the fruits of planetary being. From above, house of heaven, where star people and ancestors gather, may their blessings come to us now. From below, house of earth, may the heartbeat of her crystal core bless us with harmonies to end all war. From the center, galactic source, which is everywhere at once, may everything be known as the light of mutual love. Ayum Hunab Gu Eva Maya E Ma Ho. Ayum Hunab Gu Eva Maya E Ma Ho. Ayum Hunab Gu Eva Maya E Ma Ho. All hail the harmony of mind and nature.
Welcome to Wednesday night, Viada's Tiny House Village. I'm so grateful to be able to share and talk about another phenomenal woman. Whoa. Khadijah Farrakhan is our subject today, and my special guest is another phenomenal woman, Naimah Latif. But let me just welcome my tiny house village, which I am a part of, and I've got to do more talk on tiny house living. But for now, here's my journey for the last 10 years.
The cook-a-boot and ha. The cook-a-boot and ha. And ha kabos en lis ora corona cook curdo and ha. The cook-a-boot and ha. The cook-a-boot and ha. I look deep dress with mad poo shalao. On the bed with mad the cool type of yow. The cook's a hopper.
And that music is donated by Imak, or he's given me permission to use it. No copyright violations, Imak. And you can find him on YouTube under the spelling EMAKH. Beautiful brother. Thank you, Imak, for your generous contribution to Viada's Tiny House Village. So tonight is July 8th, 7/8/26, which is a 7. If you add all those numbers together, it comes to a 7, which is like divine order for everything. It's like everything's in divine order. So tonight we're in divine order to talk about a woman who just so phenomenal that we got to get the lessons from her life. Khadijah Farrakhan was married to Farrakhan, the founder of the Nation of Islam. Well, I don't know about founder. Naima can give us a little history on that. But for 73 years, she was married to this very controversial, dynamic, wonderful teacher in the Nation of Islam. So I found a little video to play about her. So for those of you who maybe or don't know who she is, we do want you to be clear about who this wonderful, amazing woman is, what she looks. she was 90 something years old. Some people say 90, but she looked like she was like maybe 50. She was so youthful looking. So let's just listen to a brief story about Khadijah Farrakhan, this wonderful queen and phenomenal woman from the Nation of Islam.
A beloved figure within the Nation of Islam has passed away. Khadijah Farrakhan, the devoted wife of Nation of Islam leader Louis Farrakhan and widely recognized as the First Lady of the Nation of Islam, has died at the age of 90. For more than 7 decades, she stood beside one of the most influential and controversial religious leaders in America. Although she rarely sought the spotlight for herself, her quiet strength, unwavering faith, and steadfast support helped shape the Farrakhan family and the Nation of Islam community. Her passing marks the end of an extraordinary chapter in the history of the organization she faithfully served for much of her life. Across social media and within the Nation of Islam, tributes poured in celebrating a woman remembered for her dignity, resilience, and lifelong commitment to her family and faith. Today, we remember the remarkable life, enduring legacy, and unforgettable journey of Khadijah Farrakhan. Early life and background. Khadijah Farrakhan was born Betsy Ross on November 26, 1935, in the United States. Very little has been publicly revealed about her childhood, parents, or early education. Throughout her life, she preferred privacy over publicity, choosing to focus on family, faith, and service, rather than personal recognition. Before embracing Islam, she lived as Betsy Ross. Her life changed forever after meeting the man who would become her lifelong husband, Louis Eugene Walcott, later known worldwide as Louis Farrakhan. Their relationship would become one of the longest-lasting and most recognized marriages in modern American religious history. Marriage to Louis Farrakhan. Khadijah married Louis Eugene Walcott in the early 1950s. Just 2 years after their marriage, both husband and wife embraced Islam together in 1955, becoming devoted followers of the Nation of Islam. Following their conversion, Betsy Ross adopted the Islamic name, Khadijah Farrakhan, symbolizing a new beginning built on faith and spiritual commitment. Their marriage endured for more than 7 decades, surviving political controversy, public criticism, changing times, and the immense responsibilities that came with Louis Farrakhan's leadership. Many supporters admired their relationship as a powerful example of loyalty, sacrifice, and unwavering partnership. Life within the Nation of Islam. Although Louis Farrakhan became one of America's most recognizable religious figures, Khadijah preferred to work quietly behind the scenes. She earned the affectionate title of the First Lady of the Nation of Islam, reflecting both her respected position and her years of service to the organization. Members frequently described her as compassionate, disciplined, and deeply committed to Islamic teachings. She supported countless educational, religious, and community initiatives, while encouraging women within the Nation of Islam to strengthen their families through faith, discipline, and moral values. Rather than seeking media attention, she focused on mentoring, supporting families, and helping strengthen the community from within.
So that's just a little background of this amazing, phenomenal woman. I'm so glad she gave up that name, Betsy Ross. Oh, that was like so European. And we know who Betsy Ross was. If you don't, look her up. That was I don't know what her mama was thinking of, Betsy Ross. Maybe it was somebody in the family. But I'm glad she took on Khadijah. Khadijah has such a harmony, a melodious name, and then associated with Louis Farrakhan all those years. We were blessed just to see her face in the news and to hear about her transition. I just took a deep breath and thought, wow, that says a lot. 73 years, that's a 1. So we could look at this in so many ways, how significant her passing was. To bring about the number 73, which is a 1, she was so in alignment with the Creator, with her morals and her beauty and her statue and her gentleness. And I mean, Naimah's going to share what she knew about her as being part of the Nation of Islam, but just what we saw in the public eye was just so breathtaking, amazing, admirable. And I'm just glad I'm alive to have witnessed that woman. And then to live to be 90, 9 children, that's another significant number, the number 9. So when we look at the scripture in Malachi, it says that I hate divorce, saying the creator spoke about hating divorce between a wife and a man, and then Malachi, for I hate divorce. So we could look at how aligned Khadijah was with the creator, where there wasn't even a thought of divorce, not just from Louis Farrakhan, but with the creator himself, or Allah, as he would be, the creator would be called in the Nation of Islam. But there was no, I don't even think there was a rumor of those two, Louis and Khadijah, even separating or having problems. But let me bring on my guest tonight, Naimah Latif. Welcome, my sister. Thank you so much for joining me. You look lovely tonight.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate
I was trying to get more sun, because you said you were gonna be out in the sun. I'm like, oh, I better get dark too. Let me get out here.
I was out in the yard all day, so I got a few more shades of brown on today.
Okay, well, I'm trying to catch up, my dear. But here we go. At least we're looking lovely tonight.
Yes,
like we're looking like queens that we are, right?
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for joining me. And as I said, Naimah Latif is the executive producer of the Female Solution and the On Air Everywhere Network. She runs that and so many other things. I'll let her tell you a little bit about herself. But she has also been with the Nation of Islam. So Naimah, give our listeners a little bit of your background and then how you became associated with the Nation of Islam.
Well, I was born Christian, as many of us in America were, in the African Methodist Episcopal Church, AME. But I went through a spiritual journey in seeking truth. And here in Chicago, it's a very spiritual city. There was one point where I was attending 5 different religious services a week. You know, there was, and I was following some Christians, some Hebrew Israelites, because I'd go to Reverend Henry Hardy, I think, had a service on Thursday. Reverend T.L. Barrett had Wednesdays, and then on Friday I'd go and hear Minister Louis Farrakhan. On Thursdays there's a woman, Pastor E.R. Allen, and then on the Sundays I'd go and hear Prince Asiel and the Hebrew Israelites. So I was really seeking spiritual wisdom. But one thing I found fascinating, sometimes things would happen in the world and all of them would be kind of preaching the same message. And some of them I knew, like with T.L. Barrett and Minister Farrakhan, they were friends, and Prince Asiel. But I knew Reverend E.R. Allen, she wasn't really part of the clique. But yet they would all have the same message. And I came to the conclusion that God is one, and everybody's going to get, when the creator wants to send a message through those who have volunteered to be the mouthpieces for the divine, they're all going to get the same message, even though it's of different faiths. So that was a revelation for me. Now, I ultimately ended up joining an international Muslim community, the Ahmadiyya community, which is global, worldwide, in all the various countries around the world. But my husband and I, because we were authors and had as a mission to really help our people transcend the trauma of our enslavement, to return to our spiritual status and healing our souls, we circulated among all the various communities, and we were more or less active everywhere because we understood the unity of the creator. But I was involved with the Nation of Islam as I'm a journalist, so I wrote for the paper, the Final Call newspaper, which Minister Farrakhan's wife, she had an early role in doing the editing and kind of the early organizing of that particular publication. And I also did some editing for the newspaper, and it was always a very enlightening experience working with the other reporters. So when Minister Farrakhan launched a marketing program called Power, he was trying to unite the churches around an economic program, people organized working for economic rebirth. And so me and the Hebrew Israelite brothers in the band, they had a band called the Sunlight Band. We came up with, I was kind of like a little rapper at the time. I came up with a rap song. They put the music behind it, and we were pushing the Power program. Well, as you may recall, Muammar Gaddafi had offered to finance the program, trying to help African Americans gain our economic independence and self-reliance. Well, you know how that went. The powers that be clamped down hard on Minister Farrakhan because, of course, they did not want that to happen.
Unity, no unity.
Yes. So he had to kind of redirect. They blocked the money coming from him, and so he had to kind of redirect the program. But
wait a minute, you mean they blocked the money from Gaddafi?
Yeah,
I didn't know that. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it was what had happened because, and I'm not sure how, I think everybody knows about now, George Johnson of Johnson Products, he recently transitioned. He was going to make the products, some of the the hair and skincare products and things like that. He got threatened by the government. If you work with Minister Farrakhan and accepting this contract to do this, we will make sure we take your products off the shelves.
Wow, so, I didn't know that either. I was talking to his niece about his death and all that, and wow, that's really...
this thing got intense, and I'm grateful that I kind of had a front row seat at all of this, working closely with Reverend Jesse Jackson during his presidential campaigns, and they put heat on him to not to distance himself from Minister Farrakhan, who was providing security for him with the Nation of Islam men, because they're supposed to threatening Reverend Jackson. So it was a very intense period of time, and I saw how the world is very much polarized and how the forces that be are really striving to keep us as African Americans in a state of dependency so that we don't become an economic power.
Now, when you say they, are you talking primarily about the federal government was against this program and this unifying effort?
The government and all of those who are financially benefited and who have financially benefited from everything from our enslavement to the economic system of exploitation that exists in America.
Wow. So, let me just say this. Louis Farrakhan has always talked about Zionism and the Jays. And so I would put them in the powers that should not be. All of that, they were against this powerful movement that Farrakhan was starting and Gaddafi. I didn't realize Gaddafi was that involved. And all of them came against it and said, no, we don't want... That's big news. I didn't realize it was that powerful against it that we were dealing with.
Yes. Matter of fact, I remember when he was killed.
Gaddafi?
Yes. When Muammar Gaddafi was killed and Minister Farrakhan went on WVON radio and just talked about that whole period of time. And I was there, you mean my, media partner, we were there to cover that radio interview, another historic event. But, seeing the insides of what a man like Minister Farrakhan had to fight, the kinds of powers that coalesced against him. And I could see his wife was always cool as a cucumber. And you didn't know she had to be carrying a lot of pressure because she was the woman that he had to, lean on for that support.
And talk in the bedroom at night and all
of
that.
that, you know. So when you're married to somebody who is the target of death threats and attacks and betrayals and all of that, you got to be a strong woman. You have to really have a deep spiritual strength that you can withstand that, because there's so much that happened during that period of time, because it was so intense. And you know, we're talking about a shifting of power. There was such fear. Of course, Reverend Jesse Jackson, he had global ties, so there was definitely a fear of him becoming president and not having the necessarily the alliances to those who control economic power here because of his own global prominence. And I mean, he could be making moves like Ibrahim Traore is making now with Burkina Faso, you know. And there's a fear that there's going to be that shift in power if those of us who have been the oppressed, enslaved, and colonialized organize our resources, our energy, and our talents and skills, and unite against those who are keeping this imbalance of power throughout the globe. There will be a major shift. So that's why there is such resistance. There was such resistance to the message Minister Farrakhan was putting out. And then, of course, you remember the Million Man March, which terrified them, because the idea of someone being able to organize on that level, all of these men coming and listening for, what, he speak for like 4 hours, and they stood there and listened. That was frightening. So all of this is happening, and here this quiet woman standing by his side, and he said he poured his heart out at the repast about what she meant to him and everything, because this was a strength, and she was in it for the long haul. I mean, she was with him in the beginning when they were I mean, you know, eating scraps, you know, and they had 9 children and all of that. So before he became the voice that he became and the promise that he had, she was with him in those lean years. And you know, a lot of us don't stick around during the lean years. We will jump ship if you look, where's the money? You know, where my fancy clothes? A lot of us don't have the vision and the belief and the faith to stick by somebody who has a vision and is going to go through some rough patches before they get to it. So she stood there. She was there for the long haul, and there's a lesson in that.
Absolutely. I was trying to find his speech because I did hear about it, but I haven't listened, because they said he got very emotional.
Yeah, NOI.org. You probably can find it there, because they did. And you know, it was so moving. And people who were at the funeral, like Stevie Wonder, you know, and he has a special place in our hearts in this world, just because of who he is, the spiritual voice of music, and the spiritual drive for our movement. And he sang a special tribute and everything, and I obediently did not post it on Facebook, because they asked that we not do that, because you know, the Nation of Islam is going to kind of wanted to put it out, you know, the nice edited version, not the choppy stuff that people do when they hold their cell phone. So I was obedient. Not everybody was. I looked on Facebook and said, y'all did it anyway. But you know, I know people get all excited. Stevie, they have a cell phone. So I get it, you know. I couldn't help it. But it was very moving, and so many.
You know, like I think of Coretta Scott King as another really phenomenal woman who stood by her man through all the threats and the violence and the attacks and all that. But it just shows you that even thinking about Obama was the president at the time that Gaddafi was murdered. And it just shows you that no matter who's in that White House, they are puppets to the establishment and the powers that should not be, because he had the power to prevent that murder, but he was not going to do that, because that was.
Well, I found out some things about that. Again, this is very intense, because remember, we live in a nation where people kill people. You know, that just You know, I still remember that line in the movie The Godfather, where Michael Corleone told his wife Kay, "Look, my father's just like any other powerful man, any senator or governor." Uh, and his wife Kay goes, "Well, that's different. Senators and governors don't have people killed." And he looked at her and said, "Who's being naive, Kay?" I mean, let's be real. Folks, you know,
The mafia is the mafia in the government and outside the government.
I mean, yes, let's be real.
Yeah.
So President Obama really had a drive to bring peace with all of those nations of Africa and even reaching out to Muammar Gaddafi. How do you deal with the reality that something has already been planned before you got in office and is going to be executed by the State Department, no matter how you feel about it? I mean, I can say things, you know, Michelle Obama can't say because she's got to be, you know, peaceful wife, you know, do the social good things. But that's another one. Had to deal with, you know, a man under pressure. I mean, there's a reason why his hair is gray, you know, and it wasn't when he came in office. But these are the kinds of things that you have to bear in that position, and things that even though you have the top position, you're talking about government leaders, senators, and congressmen that have been in there for decades, and they have been running the shots long before you got there, and they have had things in motion, and all of it's tied to the global economy. And how much can you really change in those 4 years, maybe even 8 years that you're in there, when so many things are already etched in stone? So
right. So it just goes
that's not a move he had the power to stop.
Yeah, it goes to show you the presidential office is an appointed. People are appointed, not elected, because they wouldn't have put certain people in there, in my opinion, unless they could control them. They knew, and even if they do elect, to me, if you elect someone to be president, you're going to have to bend to the rules of the past administration, the State Department, the mafia, and the lobbyists. So it's just such, to me, the presidential office is such a powerless position when you look at all the influence.
I mean, there are powers. If you are, on the one hand, there is the strategy of getting the Congress and the Senate on your side, so to speak. But on the other hand, there is the reality of certain things being manipulated behind the scenes by powers, like you say, powers that should not be. But they're economic powers, financial powers that control arms of government that we don't even see. I mean, I worked for the federal government, and I worked for the Federal Reserve Bank, I should say. And I found out that the Federal Reserve Bank is not part of the federal government, it's an independent entity. So you have institutions that have a stake in what happens globally, financially, and they're not part of the government. But there are things that the average citizen doesn't know. And you could look at it and say, yeah, the president is sort of appointed, because the way they have it, the reason why they won't get rid of the Electoral College, it is a control mechanism. And it was Reverend Jesse Jackson that actually changed the laws to make it possible for President Barack Obama to become President Barack Obama, because they had to actually change the way they counted the electoral vote, so he was able to win. And that was a major thing. So there are some changes that we can make step by step, but those underlying economic powers that control the politics, that control the secret world government that exists, it still exists, even if we elect someone as president. Even if that person has that position, there are still some strings being pulled that we don't see.
It's interesting knowing now the levels of power and the levels of authority in this country, in this dimension. Let's say third dimension, because we got to get a little spiritual with Khadijah. This woman had a spiritual assignment. You know, we can talk about her role as the wife of Louis Farrakhan, but obviously 90 years on the planet and 9 children and 73 years, there was a divine assignment on this female soul called Betsy Ross. Please, no more Betsy Ross. I'm so glad they got rid of that name real quick. We don't need that energy. But Khadijah, power. That name just brought power into her position.
Yes,
And
yes.
she had to know her divine assignment. At all, I just can't see anybody in that power position for 73 years with that man who didn't have a connection or a vertical connection of this is my assignment. And no matter what happens out here with the politics, with the and all the threats and all the hatred and all the power that her husband tried to use to change, and she remains this calm, prayerful, very moral, highly thought of woman of of Allah, as they would say.
Yeah.
So when you connected with her, what were some of the things you remember that maybe she spoke to you that you kind of felt that power, that divine assignment or power coming from her?
It was just a humbleness, you know. I mean, she was not one of those pompous people like, I am the wife of the head of the nation. She didn't have any of that vibe at all. Just very humble, motherly, really, that energy that she had. And you felt the sincerity, the dedication to the cause, and a real self-mastery. Because when you're married to somebody who's intense, you have to have a mastery of yourself so that your energy balances theirs. Their intensity can be balanced with your calmness. And that's what I felt from her. And it was, she set an example. She set an example. A lot of times, Minister Farrakhan, when he would speak to the audience and the membership, and especially speaking to women, and how important our role is in shaping the morals of the children, the atmosphere in the home and the family and all those things. Well, of course, she had to be an example of that, because, you can't, what's the saying? You can't teach what you don't know. You can't lead where you don't go. Actually, that's a Reverend Jackson quote. but she was the example that, of course, he could point to, because she was living it. And I was surprised to hear that she had transitioned, because I had gone to a funeral of Brother Minister Akbar Muhammad, who, very close associate of his, who had been living in Ghana and had been kind of expanding the nation's reach around the world. And he had recently transitioned. And I went to his funeral. I thought I remember seeing her, and she looked fine. You almost couldn't tell the difference between her and her daughters. And so I was surprised that she was the one who went first. And you just never know. I mean, sometimes
about what her health condition was that caused her transition.
I don't recall hearing about a health condition. Well, we know that when we plan our life, we also plan our exit. And so sometimes there isn't anything. Your heart just stopped. That's it. Okay, time's up. So
is it true that the nation doesn't do autopsies on their members? Or I heard something about they don't perform autopsies on Muslims.
Well, I don't know if one could say that is a rule. I know that in terms of a regular death where there's not a suspicion of some kind of poisoning or something that's other than what it appears to be, it really isn't a practice to cut up the body to try to find out, well, why they died, because you kind of know generally when something happens and someone is 90 years old, they will look at it as natural causes, even if their heart certainly stopped or something like that. So it's not necessary to cut up the body, because generally, even with the burial and the viewing and all of that, you want to preserve a person intact if it's not necessary to investigate a cause of death.
So they did have an open casket.
And she lied. I guess you say lied in state. You know, she was for viewing for the entire day before the funeral, so people would come by and pay their respects and that kind of thing. And so, that being the case, you know, people had an opportunity to see. And again, you know, she was not looking ill at all. So one could just presume, well, this was her time that she chose to exit. And the interesting thing about the era in which both her and Minister Farrakhan came to prominence and all the intensity, there was always the threat of assassination over his head, just like with Reverend Jackson, you know. And I had the privilege of kind of really, again, having a front row seat during that whole era. I was involved in the time he was running for president, and then all the controversy with Minister Farrakhan's support, and then, you know, the energy of danger. And so spouses who live with that year after year, decade after decade, not really knowing if your spouse is going to make it to old age. When you see, after all of that, here they are both in their 90s. Apparently, this was, you're not going to get out of here until it's your time. And so no matter how controversial he was not going to leave this earth until his mission was accomplished. And it just so happened she ended up the one transitioning first. But that was one of the things that I saw. Here were two men that lived their whole lives expecting to die early because their predecessors, Reverend Martin Luther King Jr., Malcolm X, both of them were violently assassinated. So the living in the shadow of those times of intensity, where there was so much and still is a lot of intense pressure to try to prevent the empowerment of African American people, those who were formerly enslaved in this nation. There is a very intense struggle that we're still experiencing, and a fear that someone may arise that can pull all these pieces together, unite all the broken people who have skills and intelligence, but have been so emotionally broken they can't pull together an organized effort to change the economy. So there's always a fear that these people will unite and change the balance of power, as we see happening in Africa with leaders like Ibrahim Traore.
Yeah, you know, it reminds me of the puzzles that I'm working this year. Since January, really, I've done about 3,000 piece puzzles. I just finished one. And as I was doing these puzzles, Naimah, I really got the sense of what you just mentioned, how we have these fractured people, these broken people out here. And the big picture is that we want to bring together a harmonious, loving, unified, collective human society. But these fractured pieces, and as I heard one teacher say, have to come together with love.
Yes.
And we are so divided in our communities about what even love means. I was talking to someone earlier about sex before marriage, because she's in a relationship and she's older too. And somebody asked, well, has she consummated the relationship? And she was like, well, we're not thinking about that. And I'm like, honey, I said, I don't know, unless you're very religious. Nobody goes into a marriage. We're just talking a little right now. And I'm wondering what Khadijah has taught her 9. I'm bringing this up because I wonder what Khadijah has taught her 9 children. Have they all been very strict about Quran guidelines? Or in this case, we were talking about whether you should have sex before marriage to try it out. And I said, because, you know, I was just being honest with her. Like the Bible says, when you have come together with a person, you are married. That's the Bible teaching. I don't know if it's the same in the Quran, but Christ even met with the woman at the well. He said, you've had several husbands. And when I was talking to my friend, she said, "Oh yeah," she said, "I didn't even realize what that meant before." But yeah, I said, "Yeah, she was a whore." And Yeshua Christ said in a very nice way, "Yeah, you've had several husbands, honey, and now you come to the well of life and drinking." And I'm not going to judge you, but what does the Nation of Islam teach? And what do you think Khadijah was teaching her 9 children about things like that? You think they were strict on the Quran teaching and no sex before marriage, or do you think she was more liberal? What's your thought on that?
There are reasons for teachings about marriage and family. First of all, well, let me just say that our obsession about other people's sexuality, part of it is because we understand that when it comes to family and community, human beings need to be responsible for the lives that come through them, because if you're not, then you end up being the gateway to someone coming to this earth who is not properly supported and guided, and therefore they can create havoc and mayhem and chaos because they're not properly being reared and supported and guided by 2 people who have committed to guiding that life that has come through them. So
it makes me think of Michael Jackson. If you can't feed your baby, then don't have a baby. I mean, that's a simple perspective.
And that's one of the things at the book, The Female Solution, that I wrote, that evolved into the podcast series that now have. The point that I was making is that females of every species understands this principle, that if you don't select a male who has met the requirements of malehood in terms of whatever your species is, to make sure that your children are protected and provided and taken care of, then you're not going to survive as a species. So we must make those survival choices, because if we make wrong choices and we get impregnated by people who aren't mature, aren't committed, don't understand their role, then our children are left to be in danger. So females of every species understand that. How come human females don't get it? And we got all these broken families and women struggling alone, and men that don't come around, and boys that are angry because they don't know their fathers. We made wrong choices because we did not hold the men to the proper standard of manhood to be worthy to father a child. So that's what the whole thing is about. It's not so much religion for the sake of religion, but understanding nature and what your role is as a female, to make sure that the male with whom you bring life forth is qualified to do so, because he can make sure that you're properly taken care of, so that you can do your role in raising and guiding the children. So in that respect, naturally, she's going to be one that helps her children see the greater purpose of the religious teaching, not just as a religious condemning you for having sex, but understanding that the decisions that you make in procreating, you're sending forth consequences for several generations. If you have a child and you're not with a life partner that understands their purpose and role in helping you rear those children, then you're going to have some children that are out of order, misbehaving, creating problems in the society, and they will again repeat that pattern. That's what we're seeing manifest right now. So Muslims do teach that you need to follow those guidelines of having someone committed to you before you are married, because you're producing children that are going to be affecting the society. So it's not just a personal decision, it's a collective community decision. And this is how it's understood, so that it's more than just we condemn you if you're having sex. It's like, do you understand your responsibility once you reach puberty, that you can then be a vessel through which life can come and affect your whole society based on how they're reared and how they're taught to behave. So it's a responsibility that women are taught and understand, so that they can select the man who has been properly prepared to be a husband and father.
You know, I love what you remind us about. It's a community belief support program, not just the parents. It's like the village.
It's the
It
village.
takes a village to raise a child, and that village needs to represent moral standards, moral behavior, rules about behavior, sexual behavior, all of that. But that is so missing today. Where's the community? Where's the village? Single parenting is just everywhere. And it's just my mother, Khadijah, uh, leaving us is, I think, a reminder to get back to those principles because she did it so beautifully. She
Yeah.
represented it so beautifully. She lived the 9, which is the full alignment with the creator's love, the creator's wisdom. She represented a beautiful picture of wisdom and creativity and love of the creator, because just the way she cared, the way you described her, 9 children. I think one of them pass at some point, or are all of them still living?
2 of them have.
Okay,
I think 2 of them had transitioned.
there might be 7.
But there was a beautiful picture. I don't know if you saw the beautiful family picture that was taken with all of the children. And I mean, raising one child is a challenge. So if you've raised 9, that means you gotta learn some systems of how to share, how to organize, you know, making sure that everybody is well fed and you know, kept safe and all of that.
But she had a village, right? She had a community. I'm sure those times when she and Louis Farrakhan had appointments, or there was somebody there to watch those kids in the community, right? They didn't just let anybody come in and watch their kids, right?
You know, I mean, every child is their own individual personality. Is
Right.
in any family that you have, every child is unique, and everything from birth order and everything else, you know, is important. And one thing, now his son, who Minister Farrakhan's son Mustafa, has been like his bodyguard for years in terms of his whole stand, which I think when you have a son that is that dedicated to protecting your life, that says a lot about the respect that they have for their father, which is instilled by the mother. Because I've seen so many women complain and tear down the father, or he didn't do this, or he didn't do that, or how come we don't have this? You know, when you do that and you speak ill of the children's father, they lose respect. But all the children had such respect for their father because his wife respected him and demonstrated dedication to the cause and the sacrifice she was willing to make, so that naturally the children get the message that this man is doing something important, even though he might have to travel a lot, even though, you know, he might be attacked in the media, but what he's doing is important for the world. And so
she recognized that,
you know, yes, and so they recognize that. And there's a lot of pressure that comes from even having a famous father, and a woman has to kind of keep the press out of your business. That's another thing also, being that person that shields them, like what do they say, like a mother hen shields her chicks. You have to be that person that keeps the press away from your children, especially when they're young and growing up, keeps the children from seeing and hearing negative things or being affected by negative things, so that they're not scarred by the enemies that your husband makes because he's powerful or because he's vocal and outspoken and causing fear in power structures and so forth. So she also had the weight of being the protector of them, their mind, body, spirit, their soul, their awareness, because a lot of times people try to get to you through your children. either
Yeah.
saying things or doing things or threatening lives and all of that. So the Nation of Islam had a very strong security force, and like you say, you know, people you depend on and people in the community, that there's a village, there's a protection. But it's with people who have the understanding of the importance of what you're doing, and the fact that your ability to speak is based on, well, number one, fearlessness and a commitment to the divine, knowing that this is your assignment. Like you say, you come here with an assignment. This is what we're going to do. This is what my soul is going to do. I'm going to be one that is a catalyst for the empowerment of people who have been beat down and downtrodden and disempowered. I'm going to be a voice for transformation, and I'm going to have this life partner with me for this whole life, and we're going to make this happen together. And there's 9 souls that are going to come through us that we're going to impact. I mean, all that's, of course, as you know, pre-birth plan that we all have.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so,
and they have their separate education system, right? They have their own schools.
Have this school, yes, Muhammad University of Islam. And you know, I've had friends whose children went to the school, and you know, it is a
strict, I bet.
Strict, but also children are way light years ahead of public school children in terms of what they're learning and education, because there's no ceiling put on your mind or the expectations of your brain. So they're learning scientific principles, learning physics, and you know, all kinds of things that the public schools try to treat us like we don't know how to think or learn or comprehend. So I've seen, you know, I've had friends who taught there. I've had friends whose children went there. I've seen the difference in terms of the curriculum, the level of expectation of excellence. And it's all in all of the things, like even you mentioned the moral training, that's all part of it. Understanding that your sexuality is not just for recreation. You are a mind, body, spirit complex. You are valuable. And, you know, women, you're not a plaything. You know, you're bringing forth life that's changing worlds. So you must know your value and you must exemplify it. And when you hold yourself with a certain level of dignity, it inspires the man to remember his greatness. And that's the kind of woman that Khadijah Farrakhan was, the one that showed how you inspire that respect in men, how you inspire men to remember their purpose, how you inspire them to lift themselves up, to want to get off drugs, to want to get off alcohol, to want to be intelligent because they want to be worthy of you. And that's the kind of teaching that women have in the nation, is that you are inspiring a man to strive harder to be worthy of you. So understand your worth.
Yeah, and it says it's a great statement about partnership, because they don't need, like you said, they need inspiration, not nagging and complaining. And she represented such contentment about her relationship, not only with the creator of divine energy, but with her husband on this level, that there should be a book out. Is there a book out about her, do you think?
I
Somebody should have wrote a book.
I'm sure if it's not out, I'm sure it's going to be.
Yeah, they need to put that out and put it in classrooms and get it on every family's table as set an example of what a phenomenal divine woman, divinely anointed woman looks like. And because we don't see that too often, but that's what we're here for, right? And I think I got the onaireverywhere.com. Is that's the website, right? Everywhere.com.
Yes. That'll connect you to the Daily News website, the radio network, the TV network, and all of that. Our whole media company that continues to put out information and inspiration to raise us to a higher level, so that we can be voices of enlightenment.
And so Naimah is on YouTube as the Female Solution, right?
Yes, we got a YouTube channel, Female Solution, Facebook page, The Female Solution. You go to thefemalesolution.com and you can see all of our wonderful team of hosts, of course, of which Viata has been. And we also list her on the on-air radio network, this show, the Tiny House Village, because we want people to hear all of our voices of enlightenment all across the world who are using this wonderful tool of the internet to raise consciousness. So thank you.
If they go to On Air Everywhere, they can find the Female Solution. And can they find your books there as well?
Let me see. Well, they can go to naimalatif.com for my books.
Let's see. We got a comment here from Washita Wellness. I think that's Sister Tawita. Glad to see you both. Thank you, sister. That's another goddess there at Washita Wellness. I got to have her back on the show because she hasn't been on for a while. But yeah, thank you, sister, for joining us. Yeah, it's been great to have this conversation. I learned so much about Gaddafi and the Minister Fair and Jesse Jackson. Yeah, we got to do this again, but this is fun. And you know what? When somebody like Khadijah leaves and has all those numbers around her, that's a time to stop and have a conversation on YouTube. And Mama AZ is calling in, so she wants to chime in too. So let's see what Mama AZ has to say. Mama Z, your mic is open.
Can you hear me, Dr. V?
Yes, Naimah, can you hear her?
Yes, I can.
Go ahead.
Dr. Latif, I am so grateful for you on this day to confirm so much. I even wrote the time down when you voiced that, and I'll share it at another time, but because I got to look it up to see what it means. But, you know, your husband, Brother Abdul, was the catalyst to give me the courage to listen, to reach out to you, Dr. Latif. And it's so phenomenal that you are talking about this phenomenal woman that all of us on some level have had the bounty of experiencing her in person. You know, so thank you, Dr. Latif, for everything that you have brought to this planet, to the awareness of many people, many that you don't probably even know. And thank us, Dr. V, for this platform. And I appreciate the both of you phenomenal women. And one other thing that I want to add, some of what you said, Dr. Latif, I've been having visitations, and they're getting stronger. Reverend A. Allen is one major person who's on the other side, who communicates with me. And there are some things that you said that it kind of freaked me out, because he communicated that to me when I was there that 14 days on a vision quest in a tent at the cemetery, Miracle Valley Cemetery, in 2020. And I love both of you for keeping me grounded, and Brother Kwame. So thank you for this 7th day, because my energy is a 7 as well, my life path. So thank you. Thank us. Peace. OCO.
Yes, thank us.
Thank us.
On this planet, we're growing every day. Consciousness is rising. Things are changing. No matter what we see on the internet, things are changing. So
and that's why we have to keep putting that message out, because there are two forces happening. There's the empowerment and the powerful and the enlightened based on the energy of the creator, and then there's that force of fear and repression and the negative energy of conflict. So depending on where you put your attention is what energy you are empowering. So people need to listen to shows like yours, and shows like ours coming on in a moment, the on-air daily news hour, and they need to constantly be reminded that things are changing for the better, because what does the scripture say? The earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof. We have to know what energy is in charge. The powerful energy of the creation of the universe, that's still in command, and that energy is love, not fear, not hate, but love. And that's what's going to win in the end, and that's what's winning now. So we must be those mouthpieces for love, so we can empower it more and let it spread faster, and we can enjoy it as a way of life.
Aho, ashe, ashe. And that's what drives me with puzzles, is that when I heard this guy say the way we bring these fractured pieces together in our society and our world is love. We have to put the love together. Each puzzle piece has a gender, a formation. I didn't really. The more I did puzzles, I'm like, oh, there's a female here. Oh, there's male, and then that's how near the end of the puzzle,
it is kind of true the way it fits together.
They fit in certain ways, and then so bringing the fractured communities together, the homeless, the drug addicts, it's going to require this. They bring them together with love. And so this is our contribution tonight, to show you the love that we have, to spend this time talking about a phenomenal person, and then realizing what a great teacher she is, because her lessons are continuing now.
Oh,
I need a book about her, and in the meantime, I'm gonna be watching YouTube and whatever.
Go on the website, NOI.org, because
I did, but they didn't have a video of him, so I'm gonna go on there just to.
Well, they might have the book section where
that's what I plan. NOI.com.
Nation of Islam. NOI.org.
If you're interested in learning more about Khadijah Farrakhan, go to NOI.com, and you can learn. .org. And we can spread this truth about a woman who made a huge difference in a community that is about excellence.
Yes.
The Nation of Islam is about excellence. They don't play, and they have morals. When you look at what some of these women are wearing these days, it's like, I try not to be shocked, but it's like, I'm not going to judge. I walk on, I'm not going to judge.
What happened with that? Because I went through that phase, and what it is when a woman has a deep need for reassurance, reassurance that she's desirable, she needs it from the outside, and so that's why she displays it to the outside. But when you have it on the inside, you don't have the need anymore. And I'm not saying a person shouldn't want to feel beautiful. That's what makes it feel beautiful. But I do recognize that that's where that comes from, because sometimes she's not getting the reinforcement or from her surroundings that she's beautiful and desirable and worthy of love. So that helps her attract that feeling that she's seeking.
It's deep, and when I look at my granddaughter, she just turned 12. She wants to wear lipstick. She wants to put on makeup sometimes. She wants to change her hair. She wants to pay so much attention to the outside, but guess what she's looking at all day? The phone. The lover, as the Buddhists call it. And it's been frustrating at times, and yet I've surrendered. I've been doing a lot of work on me lately to surrender to the fact I cannot control him. I can represent what I believe in the way of put the phone down. And I try, when I go around them, I don't bring my phone with me. But guess what? When I go over there, what are they holding? Their phone. And then my son just bought her a new phone. So,
well, that is a cultural phenomenon that we have allowed to be created, because the phone is a means of control And this is why you have to consciously choose what you're going to look at on your phone and how long you're going to look at it. I was with an organization that was I was with a company that was passing out phones, free phones from the government. And that's when I knew, okay, this is going to be a control device. They're going to make sure everybody has one. And now you can't function without it. You got to be able to receive text messages. You have to be able to, do financial transactions. So it's designed to be a control device. And that's why they made sure everybody had one. And now the way it is, you have young minds that are glued to it all day long, where they have lost even communication skills because of it. So it's up to us to redirect that and remove that as the control device it was intended to be, and make it an educational device that we can help it to become, and a transformational device by putting the information out like you do with your shows and we do with our shows and everything else. Because if they're looking at the right things, that will empower them instead of disempower them. So that's our job.
Yeah, it's our job. You know what? It's our mature women, conscious women. Otherwise, we got immature adults unconscious. So we do have to distinguish and discern who's in charge of the household. When the children are coming out with their phone in their hand and all day long, they can't talk to nobody. But that's a problem with an unconscious, immature parenting. And so then it puts the burden on us sometimes, not always, to teach a different message or to bring a different message, because they're not getting it in the house. When they come out that house with the long hair, teenagers with long eyelashes, hair everywhere, and phones in the hand, there's a problem in the house. And that's where we really have a challenge. I think.
We must be the example and show them
Absolutely.
love. Show them love and compassion, non-judgment, and give them the opportunity to show the greatness that's on the inside of them, because it's there.
Yeah, so I am having so much fun surrendering because I don't have a choice. and in the past, it was like,
yes, we
surrender,
do.
you need to surrender. But it really is me, because it will be less stress on me, more freedom, more peace, and all that when I just observe without judgment and enjoy the show, because that's really what it is. It's a big show out there. And she says, Female Solution, we got work to do. Absolutely.
Yes,
so thank you so much, Washington Kawida, for joining us. And we will see you. Let's see, I'll be back Friday, health and well-being with Yada. In the meantime, go to onaireverywhere.com for more time schedules and information and books galore from this amazing lady here, Dr. Naimah Latif. Thank you so much for joining. This has been so much fun.
Yes, it has. So I'm glad to have been able to shed some light on things that many people may have been misinformed about. And there's a lot of fear surrounding the Nation of Islam, just because Minister Farrakhan has been so fearless, and he has been a long time voice for empowerment. And so we know that we're living in a nation that is frightened of what will happen when those who were formerly enslaved become an economic force, a political force, and most of all, a spiritual force for transformation. But that is what is happening. And so we are experiencing an evolution right in our midst. And so let's all be a part of it.
Yeah, he's a truth teacher, and his wife has represented truth and so much more: beauty, morals, wisdom. What a blessing. We give thanks to the Most High Creator, Divine Allah, Yahweh. We give thanks for this beautiful woman who is continuing to teach us how to live on this earth in peace and love and joy and all that. So, assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.
And
upon you, and the blessings of God and God's mercy.
And in other languages, we say namaste and sat nam, aho, ashe, oh, and shalom. We'll see you on Friday. Mwah. Love you.
Levity?
Benenza putla kukana sa ora Kahus di ki alam sa ora Azem pahaka kepa patarang Adir ke hen Tashiya mushi wa pasaw kamun The fear mu the kamili a kalat nun I kick the kabun to a part to sad I knew get a was look at papa garage I knew I would for papa lag I knew I got you I could get that I knew could do the culture destination yet I knew could do la mother was part of that I do be papa that the guy was I knew for nas that super do I got no horse the cook could put it in hot yeah, the cook could put in hot